He says, this is the love for Elohim, as expressed by us, as he's desired it, that we guard his commands. And, by the way, his commands are not heavy. Okay? Heavy meaning like hard to carry and do. They're not difficult. Now, they're challenging in a world not his, and we talked about that a lot in Peace in a World Not His. So from that point of view, they are challenging to do. But if you lived in a world that was Torah observant, they wouldn't be very challenging at all to do. Okay? I mean, some of the loving each other part could be a little challenging, but the actual mechanics of this generally is not. The only thing that gets in our way is our emotions. If you truly had complete faith, complete belief, you would never be afraid. You would never be filled with anxiety. You'd never have any of that stuff because you can't have both of those things. Which means that when you're in fear and doubt and anxiety, you're not in faith, belief, and trust. You can't have both in the same space. And so our goal here is to do what he says in the verse. Because we were born of above, we're now to overcome the below. What's the below? The fear, the doubt, the anxiety, the worry, the concerns, the hate, the anger, the bitterness, all that negative junk. Instead, you would have shalom, peace, and love, and all the fruit of the ruach. You know, the 9 aspects of the fruit: love, joy, peace, patience, etc. I'm going to talk a little eschatology for you here just for a second. Look, you guys want to talk end times, and everybody wants to always think it's end times, right? Anything happens, see, look, it's end times. See, the vaccine passport is going to be the mark of the beast, or blah, 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 blah. Look, we don't know what is what. But I have people freaking out over the lockdowns and this and that and the other thing, and how life's getting hard and jobs are getting lost and they're not wanting to. And they think, I said, wait a minute. What did you think, if this really is end times, what did you think that was going to look like? Were you still banking on a rapture? It's not coming. The rapture bus has a blown engine and 4 flat tires. Okay? So if you have a ticket, there's no refunds. Okay. I mean, what did you think it was going to look like? And I don't think this is even it. I don't even think this scratches the surface of what it's going to look like. But if this was, why are you upset? Problem is, we don't have perspective. Just like I tell you sometimes when we read the scriptures, that if we don't go back to get perspective, to see the context, we lack context. If I took you to parts of Brazil, or parts of Africa, or parts of India, or places that you are familiar with that are really in almost third world squalor, like back in the Stone Age, you would be appalled and cry and be so sad to see what people live in. And you don't live in that. You have no idea what that's like. And of course, I could have named millions of other places. Even parts of this country, you'd be appalled. And then you would realize how spoiled you are. And you're spoiled, but I'm broke. Doesn't matter, you're spoiled broke. Now, our belief hasn't overcome the world, meaning that we overcame, so the world has been subdued. We're talking about individually. You have overcome the world's temptations and the world's trappings if you have true belief, then put into action. Are we good on that? Okay? So people can read this through a Christianized sort of idea that belief overcomes the world. No, the world still is the world. And it's still chugging along doing the same junk it's always done. If you're doing it this way, you're just not participating in it. That's the only difference. You're not drawn into it and sucked into it where you're now having the same behaviors and thoughts and everything else that the world does. You, verse 3, you are already clean because of the word which I've spoken to you. Now, clean, let's not understand this through Christianese. Okay? What in Hebrew would that word be for clean? Tahor. And the opposite being tameh, unclean. So he's saying is you are tahor. That's different than thinking, oh, you're perfect, you're not sinning anymore, you're having no more mistakes. You are ritually and covenantally clean. In other words, to be tahor, what's required? Rituals. There's things that have to be done for something to be tahor. Okay? And so it says here, you are already clean because of the word which I spoke to you. In other words, you took the word I spoke to you and you did the things that make you tahor. But it should be so obvious. But see, you know why it's not? The bubble has to be popped. Because you have to learn, I'm teaching you how to read your Bible. Okay? You have to extrapolate what it's saying and what it's not saying. So for example, when you hear him say, stay in me, you should be hearing it's possible to leave. Because otherwise, why would it be necessary to say it? Okay? If you couldn't do it. And then he makes it clear, and if you don't stay, you're going to be like the branches, like the kindling, the super dry stuff thrown in the fire and poof, you're burned up. Which doesn't sound like torture forever in hell, something like that or whatever. This is what happens. If you don't stay in him, you get burned up, and that's it. It's quick, it's merciful, and that's it. It's Yeshua himself saying this to you. In this my Father's esteem, that you bear much fruit, and you shall be my students, my taught ones. In other words, you will demonstrate that you have been taught by me. Again, it's not a status like saying, I showed up in class and my teacher's name is, Yeshua, so that's my teacher. He's saying, no, when you bear much fruit to the esteem of the Father, you will have demonstrated that you have been my student. You see, the wording's a little different, but do you understand it more clearly? Because all these people out there want to claim, I'm disciple of Messiah, whatever they call them. It doesn't matter, in the churches or whatever. But really, are you bearing much fruit to the esteem of the Father? Well, yeah, I go to church on Sunday and that's not to the esteem of the Father. The point is this. This is one of those verses to help you understand what Yeshua did, okay? What did he actually do? He redeemed you. He didn't do human sacrifice for those that attack you for human sacrifice and everything else. Oh, but he sacrificed himself. Yes, he gave up something he could have had so you can have it. That is what we would call a sacrifice. We're not talking about a sacrifice like an animal slaughtered on an altar. Let's be careful we use the right words. He gave up his life by saying, Father, they deserve to die. Take me instead of them. Now bear in mind, even though he said all that, he didn't just walk up to an altar and kill himself. He allowed this horrific murder to take place. But he did it willingly, knowing that it would provide the redemptive response. In other words, exchanging his life for ours. But understand that nobody's getting in that's not a friend. And he wants us to be friends. And how does he say to be friends? He says, if we love him and guard his commands, then we are his friends. You are my friends if you do whatever I command you. So when we covenant, actually it's a covenant of friendship. I've never taught this way before. It's just pay attention. It's not in any other place. It's a covenant of friendship. Yahweh wants to spend forever with his friends. The Father wants to spend forever with his friends. Now, he desires that all be saved. So he'd like everybody to be his friend. Not everybody will stay in him, though. That's the problem, is staying in. Okay? If you don't stay in, then that's a different problem.